The scar itched whenever I thought about the war. Even now, years later, under twin suns that burned lavender across the horizon, it throbbed like a heartbeat under my cheekbone. The medic said it was healed, that the alien metal had been purged from my body, but scars don't listen to doctors. Scars remember, I was stationed at Outpost Varela, a human settlement carved into the glass deserts of Zha'rin Prime. The air shimmered, dry and electric, and the sands hummed faintly from residual energy left by the war. Some nights I swore I could still hear the screams, both human and alien, riding the wind. We'd come to Zha'rin 10 years ago, back when Earth still believed in manifest destiny among the stars. We were told the Zha'rin were savages, primitive insectoids with crystalline armor and a hive mind that thirsted for conquest. That was before we realized they were ancient, not primitive. Before we saw their towers carved from living stone. Before we broke them, and before I met her. Her name was Satira, though the translation barely touched the complexity of the sound. The first time I saw her, I was bleeding out on the battlefield. My unit had been ambushed in the ravine of shards, a canyon lined with reflective mineral spires that turned sunlight into weaponized heat. My rifle was useless, my comms fried. The scar on my face came from a plasma slash that nearly melted my jaw. And then she appeared. A tall silhouette, wrapped in dark membrane armor that rippled like water. Her eyes, if they could be called that, were multifaceted orbs of deep violet, reflecting not just light, but memory. She didn't kill me. She should have. Instead, she pressed one of her clawed fingers to the wound, and it burned cold. The world went dark. When I woke, I was in a cocoon of alien silk. The wound closed, the pain dulled. Around me, the war still raged, but distant, muted, as if I were between worlds. Satira spoke then, in a language that wasn't sound but vibration, like thoughts brushing against my skull. You survived. I didn't understand what she meant. I didn't even understand why she'd saved me. But the words, those two words, stuck in me deeper than the scar itself. Years later, after the ceasefire, I returned to Zha'rin Prime, not as a soldier, but as a peacekeeper. Earth had decided to rebuild relations, to share resources, to pretend the genocide had been a misunderstanding. The Zha'rin didn't forget, but they were pragmatic. Survival trumped vengeance. They called her the last queen, Satira. Her hive had been the largest before the collapse. Rumor said she was the one who brokered peace, the one who convinced her kind that humans were worth tolerating. I didn't believe it until I saw her name on the diplomatic register, requesting a human liaison for the Reconstruction Council, and she had requested me. The palace of the Zha'rin wasn't made of stone or metal. It was grown. Veins of bioluminescent crystal pulsed through the walls like arteries. The air smelled of ozone and salt, and every surface seemed to breathe, slow and deep. I walked alone through the living corridors, guided by shifting lights that changed hue depending on my thoughts. It was unnerving. When I entered the chamber, she was waiting. Satira hadn't aged, or maybe her kind didn't. She was draped in translucent armor that glowed faintly from within, her limbs graceful, her face half human in symmetry, half alien in something like beauty. For a long moment, we simply stared at each other. You came back, she said, not with sound, but directly into my mind. I owed you my life, I answered aloud. She tilted her head. No, you owed yourself understanding. Her gaze flicked to my cheek, the scar, a silvery line that curved from temple to jaw, a remnant of that first encounter. Her hand, three-fingered and crystalline, rose slowly. I didn't flinch as she touched it. The moment her skin met mine, a flood of images burst through me. The battlefield, the screaming, the sky torn by fire, her clutchmates dying, the hive collapsing, and me, broken, terrified, alone on the ground. Then her voice, soft and clear like a ripple in still water. You survived. I staggered back, the air rushing from my lungs. Why did you save me? You could have ended the war that day, she lowered her hand. Because death was already certain for too many. And because you looked at me, not as a monster, but as something you could understand. I was half conscious, I muttered. Perhaps. A faint vibration pulsed through the room. Laughter, maybe. But you remembered. She gestured for me to sit. A living structure unfolded from the floor, forming a seat shaped from coral-like tendrils. I sat. The humans rebuild cities, she said. The Zha'rin rebuild memory. The two must meet somewhere in between. I nodded. That's what I'm here for. The council will not meet today, she interrupted gently. They sent you to negotiate trade, but I called you here for truth. Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. Truth? Her eyes darkened, the inner light pulsing slower. The war was not started by us, I frowned. Our records say, your records lie. The words weren't angry, just tired. You were manipulated. The humans mined the veil crystals beneath our hives, stones that stabilize planetary energy fields. We warned you, but your leaders refused to listen. When the ground ruptured, it was not an attack. It was collapse. Your command used it as pretext. I swallowed hard. You're saying Earth started the war. I am saying, she whispered, that both sides were victims of those who desired conquest. The silence between us thickened. War crimes, lies, cover-ups, it wasn't impossible. It was human. I ran a hand over my face. The scar burned again. Then why make peace at all? Why not let us destroy ourselves? Her gaze softened. Because survival means nothing without understanding. You survived, Nathaniel. But have you learned why? The use of my name startled me. You remember that? I remember everything, she paused, including the moment you looked into my eyes and saw a person. For hours we spoke, not as enemies, but as witnesses. She showed me images through the hive's neural crystals, memories of the war from her people's perspective. Children cocooned for protection, hives collapsing, soldiers burning alive under orbital bombardment, and amid it all, a single image, me, carried through the battlefield in her arms. It didn't make sense. I'd thought of her as a phantom memory, a fever dream stitched into trauma. But here she was, alive, real, unchanged. When the lights dimmed into twilight, she led me to a balcony overlooking the desert. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, scattering violet fire across the glass dunes. Your people will ask for the veil crystals again, she said quietly. They will promise restraint. But they will dig too deep as they always do. You think peace will fail? I think peace must be taught. She looked at me. Through those who survived. The wind brushed past us, carrying faint whispers, tones I couldn't interpret. Her people communicating across distance. The hive still lived, even fractured. Then she reached for me again. Her fingers traced the scar lightly, almost reverently. Do you know what this means to us? She asked. I shook my head. It is a mark of rebirth, she said. Among my kind, when one endures mortal pain and returns changed, they are marked so others may know. This one has walked between life and death. They carry wisdom. Wisdom, I echoed, bitter. All I carry is guilt. She leaned closer, so near I could see the microfractures of light within her skin. Guilt is the seed of wisdom. Then she whispered again that same phrase that had haunted me for years. You survived. But this time I understood. It wasn't a statement. It was a question. Had I truly survived or merely continued existing? That night I couldn't sleep. The palace hummed with low frequencies that resonated in my bones. Every sound seemed alive, every breath shared. I found myself standing at the balcony again, staring into the glass desert. My reflection shimmered back at me, human, scarred, uncertain. Behind me, Satira's voice drifted softly. Do you regret coming here? I turned. She was bathed in pale light, her features both alien and heartbreakingly familiar. I don't know. I think I regret everything that came before. She approached, her movements soundless. Then perhaps this is where you begin again. Her hand brushed mine, cool, electric. For a heartbeat, I saw flashes, Earth's oceans, Zha'rin's deserts, stars spinning above both worlds. A bridge forming, not of metal or treaties, but of memory. She drew closer, her eyes glowing softly. Stay, she said. Learn what it means to rebuild, I hesitated. The human envoy would call it betrayal. But the soldier in me, the one who had died and been reborn in a war no one truly understood, knew it was something else. Teach me, I whispered. She smiled. Or at least the Zha'rin equivalent of one. A delicate ripple of light across her face. Then let the scar be our promise. Weeks turned into months. I learned the language of resonance, the way Zha'rin shared emotion as soundless vibration. I watched them heal their planet, singing to the crystals, guiding growth instead of forcing it. Their technology was alive, symbiotic. Every act of creation was also an act of empathy. And Satira, Queen, healer, survivor, taught me what it meant to listen. Sometimes, she'd touch the scar on my face and I'd feel her memories flow through me. Grief, loss, love, and something older than either of our species. The more I understood her world, the more I realized how fragile peace truly was. Then, one night, she said, "They will come soon. Your people, to take what they believe is theirs." I nodded grimly. "I know." She looked out at the horizon where distant lights flickered, human ships descending. If they cannot be taught, then they must be reminded. Reminded of what? That survival is not Vix.